If your hypnosis or hypnotherapy business isn't making enough money right now, something has to change. You can't carry on what you're doing. So to move forward, you need to understand what is your critical path, what's going to get you from the uncomfortable place that you're currently in to the successful, thriving business that you want to have. I'm Jonathan Butler, and I am founder of Boost Academy and Help for Hypnotherapists, where I help hypnotists, hypnotherapists to become successful, to establish a successful, thriving business that will give them the lifestyle that they want to have. And I want to share with you today the concept of the critical path, because so many people come to me who are struggling, asking for help, and they are overwhelmed. They are struggling. And the thing I'm always trying to bring them back to is, what is their critical path? What have they got to do? What have they got to stop doing? And I came across this concept many years ago in my previous career before I was a hypnotherapist, where I worked in delivering huge, big transformational IT programs, organizational change programs with so many things going on, so many different threads and work streams. And we had this concept called the critical path. And the idea of the critical path was to stop that overwhelm, to keep us focused upon what we needed to do and the order that we needed to do things in, and to stop us, everybody involved, from getting distracted, going off chasing shiny things or interesting things that would take us off that critical path. And so, to me, for those of you building your hypnosis business, this is a concept that I think you'll find incredibly powerful. So the critical path is about doing what you need to do, knowing the steps you need to take in the order that you need to take them, and knowing what you need to stop doing. And here's an exercise that I think you'll find really helpful to get to grips with the critical path. So if your business right now, if it's not giving you what you want to get out of it, I suspect you're probably working pretty hard, you're probably feeling overwhelmed, maybe feeling quite anxious, and you're grasping at things. You're looking for silver bullets, because that's what I typically see with people asking me, what's the one thing I've got to do? What's the thing that made the difference for you? And of course, there is no one thing. It is about doing the right things in the right order consistently and stopping doing the wrong things. And that will get you where you want to go. So right now, I suggest you get a piece of paper, or you can do this on your computer or on a chart, however you want to do it. But I suggest you write down, make a list of all the things outside of your actual therapy work that you spend your time doing in a working week. What are all the things that you spend your time doing? And write down how much time you're spending upon those things. So you've got a column with the activities, a column with the time you spend on doing those things. So maybe you're going to have your time spent on social media, your time spent on doing adverts, your time spent on all the things that you spend your time on trying to grow your business. And then I want you to have a third column against each of those activities, where you write down what reward, what return you're actually getting from those activities. And that exercise in itself is actually really, really quite helpful, quite powerful for seeing, for having that visual on a page representation of the effort you're putting in versus what you're getting out. And you may well know this kind of in your head, but writing that down will help you get some perspective on some of the things that are working for you and are not working for you. And having done that, what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to project forward. Look forward, let's say a year in the future, where you have that successful practice that you want to have. You're earning the money, you've got the right kind of clients, you're living the lifestyle. You really know that this is it, you are established, you're not going back, you're there, you're on the journey in a good place. So what I want you to do is, I want you to imagine yourself, let's say it's in that year's time or whatever time frame you've got in mind. I want you to see yourself in that place. Okay. Then I want you to imagine that you are going to be interviewed. You're going to be interviewed by a journalist, or maybe even just asked by a friend or asked by another therapist, but you're going to be asked, what were the key things that you did that helped you, that made you successful? What things did you do that made you successful? So I want you to think about that and write those things down. Imagine yourself in the future. What things will you have done? And more than likely, what things will you have done between now and then that are different to what you've been doing now, where you are struggling? What are the things that you've stopped doing? And when you're talking to somebody else who's just starting up, or who's got their struggling therapy business, who you want to help, what advice are you going to give them? What would you tell them to do that you learned from becoming successful? So this is an incredibly powerful concept. And again, I go back to my time when I worked for huge, big management consulting companies, technology companies, and we delivered huge projects for really big organizations, making enormous changes in business systems, business processes. And what I would always do at the start of any process, whether right from the start of when we were bidding for a project, because these were always competitive because of the amounts of money that was involved, I would always start off right when we started working on this bid, before we putting anything into paper, before we had any solution, I would write down either a letter, or I'd write down a speech or a PowerPoint presentation that I would imagine that I was my customer. I was the customer that we were looking to work with, and I would be the customer who was making the decision, making the recommendation to the executives, to the board in that company. So I would be writing down what that person, the recommender who was asking for the money, for the commitment to work with us, I would write down why they chose us. Why did they choose that organization that I was working for? And so that was the start of it for me, to ensuring that we won the business, because I was getting myself looking forward, understanding actually what was going to make us successful. Why would we win the bid? What was the client looking for? What were the key criteria for them that would make them choose us above all the other people who wanted this huge, big contract? So I'd always start off by looking at where I wanted to go, and that would give me my critical path. And people along this journey in the organization would get excited about all sorts of different ideas. Let's do this, let's put that together, let's do that demonstration. But you'd always bring them back to, is that going to help us to prove those points that they are going to evaluate us on and make that decision on? And then we do the same thing again when we won the business. And let me tell you, I nearly always won pretty much every contract I ever went for, because I was doing this. I was understanding what was a critical path to win the sale. And then when we got into delivery, we would approach it in the same way. What was the critical path? And I would picture ourselves at the end of the project presenting to the board again, telling them about what we delivered, the success that we delivered, and what made it successful going into the final, the implementation or the go live, the acceptance of the service. And so that was really incredibly powerful, because what it did is it stopped us having that overwhelm. It kept everybody focused on the right things. It stopped us wandering off at tangents, knowing our critical path. And it's just the same in your hypnosis business. Maybe it's a lot smaller than those kind of businesses, but actually it is exactly the same, because what I know myself from starting up my business, in with all my experience, was that I was spending lots of time doing lots of things that people were telling me, the gurus were telling me I needed to do. Lots of time on social media, lots of money on doing adverts, running around trying to do as many things as I could, listening to people who were telling me what I need to do was work harder, produce more content. And of course, none of that stuff worked, because the people who were telling you what you needed to do, they built their hypnosis business years ago. And now they're doing a training business where it's very, very different. Okay, so what worked 5 years ago, 10 years ago to build a hypnotherapy business no longer works. You need to understand what you need to do now in exactly the right order. So that's the concept of the critical path. I'd like you to think about that. And we apply that concept of the critical path to what we do in Boost Academy, where we have a blueprint, which is a framework of the things you need to do in the order that you need to do them. And that will take you through exactly what you need to do, stop you doing the things that are going to take you off course, and will get you quickly using a proven formula, proven blueprint to having that successful business, because it's not rocket science. But when you do that, you will avoid that overwhelm. You'll get revenue, you'll get income quicker, and you'll get that business that you want to have. So critical path is critical. If you don't have a critical path, here's what I see too often. You will end up in the 3 Bs. And apologies if you've heard this before, but this is so important. Just like a big project would have been for me in the past, if you don't keep focus on the critical path, you end up in a very overwhelmed, difficult, failing place. So you will end up, if you don't have a critical path, being overwhelmed, leading to you being burnt out, leading to you being broke because you're not earning enough money, and you're probably spending money on lots of shiny things where people are promising you miracle results. And more than likely, you'll end up back doing what it was that you used to do, that you've tried so hard and worked so hard to get away from. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you'd like to know more about how Boost Academy can help you with either our one-to-one elite training, our online Boost Academy course, or our individual modules where we help with specific issues, please visit www.helpforhypnotherapists.com/courses, where you'll see the full range of our Boost Academy courses. And that will be down below in the information as well, that link. And you'll also see a link to the overview of our courses. So thanks for listening. I'm Jonathan, and I'll see you very, very soon.